Welcome. Thanks for being here. I do this as a hobby, which turns out to matter because nobody pays me to like anything. I pick up a bottle, I ask what it's hiding, and it is almost always hiding something. So being suspicious isn't my job, it's my personality. So this is awkward. Because there is one house I can't manage to stay suspicious about. I've tried to catch her. I've picked up the bottle in my worst mood and asked what she's hiding, and the answer keeps coming back the same, which is nothing. She's hiding nothing. And a fragrance critic with nothing to expose is a critic with nothing to do. So there's no argument today. Today, I'm going to sit here and gush about one woman on the record, and you can't stop me. One woman, every drop, no lab. Her name is Lismoise, and Papillon is hers. Not hers the way a celebrity's name is on a bottle, a factory in New Jersey filled. Hers. She makes it in a studio attached to her house with a pen because she never learned the software the industry uses to stay legal. She blends it and pours it into a beaker by hand and presses the little spray top with a tool. A woman assembling her own perfume at her own kitchen counter, which is exactly what she is. Then she leaves it alone for 3 months because the rushed version is worse and there's no boss standing over her with a deadline. Here is how everyone else does it. The name on the bottle belongs to a fashion house or a pop star. The perfume itself was made by an employee at one of a handful of giant companies you've never heard of, a Givaudan or a Firmenich, who signed something promising never to take credit. It's a tidy system invented by sensible people in a meeting, and it has produced an ocean of perfume that smells like it was invented by sensible people in a meeting. So naturally, I assume she was running the same trick at a smaller scale. She isn't. She buys her raw materials from the giants like everybody, and then she does the unthinkable thing, which is make the perfume herself. That's the whole scandal. There is no scandal. And none of this should work. Lismoise has no perfumery degree. She's never attended the famous school in Versailles that produces the industry's noses. She has no chemistry whatsoever, having been thrown out of a chemistry at school, a detail she offers cheerfully. Before perfume, she did massage and aromatherapy and ran a property business. Her entire training is a 5-day course and then a couple of years teaching herself in a shed. Anubis, her first, took the better part of forever. And the leather at the heart of it, she copied from the smell of her own horse's saddle, which is either madness or genius, and turns out to be genius. Persolaise, a critic who doesn't gush, reviewed her debut and said the work had a maturity completely at odds with how little experience she had, that her head and her hands knew exactly what to do. He set a self-taught woman from the New Forest beside the great houses, then spent a paragraph plainly baffled that she was allowed to be this good. I find this delicious. The industry built an entire finishing school, Versailles and the years of apprenticeship before they let you sign your name, and a woman who got expelled from chemistry strolled past the whole thing and made the perfume the finishing school wishes it had made. The diploma was supposed to be the point. She is the counterexample, in a beaker in Hampshire. And here's what people get wrong about her. The fantasy of a woman like this is the all-natural saint, the one who refuses nothing but flowers and good intentions. That woman is a marketing invention, and she's usually lying. Moores will not play her. She uses about half naturals and half synthetics, calls it her golden ratio, and says so to anyone who asks. She describes the first lab-made materials she ever tried the way other people describe a first kiss. And the honesty is the luxury. The house swearing every drop was gathered by hand at dawn is the house with something to hide. The one telling you half of it came out of a lab is the one you can trust with the other half. She makes a perfume called Tobacco Rose. And there is no tobacco in it. She bought the rose effect out of oakmoss, hay, and a little balsam, and when people asked why the ingredient list stayed silent on it, she gave the answer nobody in this business ever gives. I'm quoting her. There's no listing for tobacco simply because it isn't there. She deleted the beautiful selling word from her own label because the thing behind it wasn't in the juice. And she did this at the one moment she could have lied and not a soul on earth would have caught her. On my skin, it's one of the best red roses I own. It's honeyed at the edges and it sits on something faintly indecent that washed up on a British beach. Angélique, and I'm so sorry, but can you see, I've shattered, I dropped the bottle and I shattered the lid, but Angélique over here is the quiet one. She is the one who behaves in a lift. It opens cool and silver, iris and waxy yellow mimosa. It's the sort of thing people call girlinesque when they mean expensive and a little sad. On me, it warms into wood smoke by the afternoon. On you, it might stay pretty cool, iris, and never move. And it will not win you a single compliment because it barely leaves your own wrist. The iris in it runs about 19,000 pounds a kilo now, up from 9 when she started, because the good stuff only ever gets dearer. And she pours it into a beaker by hand in a shed, as though it were washing up liquid. Dryad is green the way a wet wood is green. Let me spray it on skin. It opens bitter and stalky. The old galbanum green they quietly removed from everything in the 80s. And it settles into moss on the skin for hours, soft as a scarf you forgot you had on. It's built on real oak moss, so here's the thing that everyone gets wrong at parties. Oak moss isn't banned. 2 allergens inside it are restricted by European law. A careful perfumer uses the cleaned up version and stays inside the line. And Moores stays inside the line without gutting the chypre because she knows what she's doing. Somebody on the internet insists Dryad smells like hippie soap. I understand how they got there. They are wrong. And then there is Salome. It came out in 2015 and swept the Basenotes Reader Awards, and the house won Best New House the same year, which is roughly the equivalent of walking in off the street and winning the Oscar and the cinema it played in. It's the bottle I put on when I'm tired of smelling like a brand and want to smell like a person. And on me, it opens dark and velvety and clove and rose with the jasmine that has no morals. And then, about 10 seconds in, the cumin arrives. And cumin is the note that smells like a warm body, and hers swaggers. Underneath is the animal part, hyraceum, and a synthetic civet doing the work of bare shoulders, and the whole thing eventually lies down into a spiced vanilla you can still smell on yourself the next morning. 2 sprays last me roughly a day, although I am an oversprayer. I never just do 2 sprays. The materials are the argument. That animal warmth is partly hyraceum, which the marketing calls Africa's stone, and which is, I want to be accurate, fossilized hyrax droppings scraped off a rock. No animal is harmed. The animal was, frankly, finished with it. The famously filthy notes, the civet and the castoreum, are synthetic, and she tells you so, which matters more than the word natural ever has. The ambergris in My Tobacco Rose is real. It's beachcombed off a British beach, legal flotsam somebody found in the sand. That same lump is a felony in America, banned under both the Endangered Species Act and the Marine Mammal Protection Act, because it came out of a sperm whale, and the United States doesn't care that the whale had moved on. A luxury on my side of the ocean and a crime on the other, over a smell. For about 30 years, perfume scrubbed itself clean. Everything went edible and vaguely apologetic. And here Salome walks in and puts the body back. The critic behind Kafkaesque called it the smell of sex, seduction, and skin, and named it as the best thing released that year. And he's right. It's jasmine with a pulse and bad intentions. One woman made it by hand with nobody in a meeting begging her to make it nicer. If Salome is the body, Spell 125 is the soul. And the point is that, she can do both. Let me see, where am I going to spray you? I think over here. All right, let's do it over here. This is not a perfume you wear at people. It's cold frankincense and pine, and it runs entirely on your body heat. So on a freezing day, it smells like a pine-scented cleaning product and an old ashtray. And on a warm one, it turns into something I would follow into a church. She named it for the passage in the Egyptian Book of the Dead where they weigh your heart against a feather. The same book that Anubis comes out of, which means that the loudest thing she's ever made and the most solemn one are quietly related. It is the least sociable, beautiful thing I own, and I love it for not caring whether you like it. And here's where I give up the detachment entirely, and I can say it with the bottle on my wrist because, of course, I own this one too. The rest of the industry reformulates in the dark. A rule changes or a material gets pricey and they quietly swap out the insides. The label stays the same and nobody writes to tell you. You buy the perfume you loved at 20 and it answers the door as a polite stranger in its old coat. I've made entire episodes out of that grief. But Liz Moores has never reformulated anything, not once. She writes inside the rules from the beginning, so the rules can never come for her later. And she said that if they ever did come for something she loved, she would stop making it before she'd change it. And she was actually talking about this bottle, Anubis, the leather that started the whole thing. This is the smell that was built off her horse's own saddle. If she had to pull the jasmine and the clove out of it, she said, it would not be Anubis anymore, and so she would simply stop. On my arm, it opens like a tomb in full sun, all warm resin and immortelle, and it softens to a suede and then burns down to sandalwood and embers that sit close and smolder for hours. It never shouts, on purpose. Persolaise called it the most disquieting thing in her debut, compelling and impenetrable at once. And there is nothing in it you could remove and still have it. Water it down and you don't get a smaller Anubis, you get a stranger in its clothes, which is what the rest of the shelf does every year and calls it maintenance. She would rather hold the funeral than fake the life. Call it stubborn. I call it the entire argument of this house worn on one wrist. Liz Moores has never poured out a first batch. For every perfume, she keeps a master jar of the original compound and tops it up rather than letting it run dry. So a drop of the very first batch of a scent stays dissolved in every later bottle of it she sells. Think about what that means. The Anubis on my arm reaches back to the leather accord she built in 2010. She'd taught herself the whole craft in a shed by then, starting years earlier with a cheap vodka and a mess she's laughed about ever since. The hand that made it hasn't left the building. It's in the juice and on my skin, which makes it a fact rather than a story. And that is why I could not stay cool about her. Everywhere else, the name on the bottle is a costume worn over a contract, and the person who actually made the thing sits in an office you will never be shown. Here, the name belongs to the woman who did the work, and her own first batch is still dissolved in every bottle. So, I own 7 of them now. Salome is her nerve on my skin. Anubis is the one she would sooner discontinue than weaken. Epona, the newest she made for a horse she'd lost, and let me spray it on my hand. And it opens as cold violets kept in a fridge before it warms to a honeyed leather that is only ever the suggestion of a horse. Every one of them carries a drop of its own first batch, right? The Anubis, which is the closest thing to time travel a bottle can manage. I went looking for the place where the story falls apart, the way I always do. And this time, there was no such place. There was a woman in the New Forest who decided the honest way was the only way she was willing to work, and then quietly outmade an entire industry that had 100 reasons why she couldn't. So take her name with you, Liz Moores. Say it the way you would say the name of a painter, because the paint is still wet in every bottle she sells. But before you go, I want to hear from you because this is where the comments get good. Which one would you wear? The growl or the green? And when a house swears to you that it is all natural, does that make it you trust it more or less than the one that looks you in the eye and admits half of it came out of a lab? And the question I'm really curious about is, who's the maker you can't be cool about? The one you love without a single reservation and would defend at a dinner party? Tell me in the comments. I read all of them. If you want more of this, the takedowns and the love letters both, please subscribe. Nobody's paying me to say any of it, and there's nothing here to buy, which is the entire point. So the only currency I take is you sticking around. Hit the bell while you're at it, because on Saturday I'm going to explore the 2010s, the decade when niche became a price tag. And honestly, if you want the longer, stranger version of all of this, it lives on the Substack, where I write the things that will not fit in a video. And there's no sponsors, no affiliates, nothing for sale but the argument. I'll see you on Saturday.